Welcome to this Conveyancing Matters Spring 2024 news update.
Welcome to Conveyancing Matters with Lorraine and Stu. Join us for a chat about all things property.
So Stu, hello, how are you?
Hello. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you, Lorraine?
Yeah, I'm good. You're looking very clean shaven there, mate.
No, we've got to make an effort sometimes, haven't you?
Yeah, just occasionally. Yeah. So unbelievably, we're into our spring 2024 news update. To be fair, for various reasons, we missed a couple, Stu. So we're bringing together some of the big themes that have happened, I think, over the last couple of months, aren't we?
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
But always worth talking about conveyancing matters first. So we've got an event coming up on the 12th of June.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we sure have. So we're doing another live event, aren't we? This time we're in Essex, the promised land, of course. So we're back at Rayleigh, or in Rayleigh, at the Red Door. It's the 12th of June, so it's a normal format, 6 till 9 after work, where everybody can come along, have a good natter, have a few drinks, and we're going to be talking about, guess what, material information.
Yeah, I think it's the big topic, isn't it? Particularly given, as we'll see in a minute, the Law Society sort of waded into the argument. So we thought that would be a really good topic, obviously, for our conveyancing friends and indeed our estate agent friends and contacts too. So it's a great little venue, really nice little venue, Red Door in Rayleigh. So if anybody wants, our subscribers, our annual subscribers get to go for free, of course, but it's possible to just buy a ticket for £10 if you want to come at www.conveyancing-matters.co.uk.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to have a chat with some estate agents on the night as well, because I think, you know, everything that we've discussed so far, we've made these sort of assumptions about what estate agents might or might not do. So actually to have the debate with conveyancers and estate agents at the same time in the same room will be good.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of being in the same room as estate agents, we went to the Property Reporter Awards on the 28th of March, didn't we?
Yeah, we certainly did. Yeah, and that was a great night, wasn't it? It was an interesting venue, a different format to maybe some of the other awards that we attend. So, yeah, it was a great night, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, and of course, the thing for us for Conveyancing Matters, it was lovely to be a nominee in their Best Education Provider category. I was really delighted about that. We didn't win, but I don't think that mattered. Apparently, they had a fair few nominees, and we got to the final three. So I was really delighted about that. Obviously, nominated really for the subscription service and the webinar service that we offer. So I think that was a bit of a personal plus for us, really, Stu.
No, absolutely.
And on the matter of subscriptions, our CPD webinar this month, if you're interested and you want to subscribe, it's only £40 per person per year and £150 per firm per year, so incredibly good value. And this month we are talking about unregistered land, so that's our CPD webinar this month. So I'm going to talk about the sort of some of the technicalities of unregistered land, and then that's for the April CPD, and then you and I, Stu, will be talking about some of the practicalities and difficulties of unregistered land for the May CPD, won't we?
Definitely. No, look forward to thrashing that one out.
And just before we move on to some sort of other news apart from Conveyancing Matter news, we did what turned out to be a very popular YouTube chat probably 18 months ago now, the vicar who lost his house, and you had a chat with him, Stu, Mike Hall.
Yeah, obviously it's the sort of one of the biggest fraud cases that everyone's aware of, and I actually got to meet Mike, went up to see him, and we had a good chat and sort of spoke through exactly what happened, how he felt. So hopefully that'll be an interesting sort of video for everyone to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's going to go out in the next few days. So everybody should watch out for that, and indeed look at the vicar who lost his house YouTube video that we did again, because there's quite a lot of comments in there about sort of avoiding property fraud more generally. So moving on to the sort of other news rather than Conveyancing Matters news, Stu. Well, as we've already trailed, really, lot of controversy, I think it's fair to say, relating to material information more generally. So the information that trading standards have said in guidance estate agents should be putting out when marketing a property. That they should have been doing that since last November. But I think it seems pretty clear from our chat with Mike Day, Stu, that agents don't appear to be doing that yet, particularly, do they?
No, certainly. I don't think the appetite's there just yet. And I think in Mike's words, he used the term or public hanging. There needs to be a public hanging, doesn't there, maybe? I think at the moment, yeah, everyone's just sort of seeing what's going to happen. And until maybe there's more in the news, so to speak, yeah, I think people are sort of holding back, or agents certainly.
Yeah, but I think the Law Society have brought the issue of material information sort of really to the fore as far as conveyances are concerned, because sort of unannounced towards the end of March, they introduced the 5th edition of the TA6 the Property Information Form, Stu. And if anybody wants more of our thoughts, they can subscribe, because last month the CPD webinar was on this very topic, material information. But it's caused quite a furore, hasn't it? There's been a lot of kickback from the profession on the updated property information form, the 5th edition, Stu. As a matter of interest, are you using it yet? Are you seeing it much?
No, not seeing it much yet. But I suppose, you know, that it's going to start to come through, isn't it? It's difficult because I think the key with this one is the way in which all of a sudden it just sort of sprung up, didn't it? That came from absolutely out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, yeah, we're now looking at all these additional questions, and, you know, the relevance of some has to be questioned, to say the least. But I think it's one of those things. The profession has sort of kicked back against it, and, you know, it's been reported on a lot of different news forums, not just, you know, our industry, but the estate agent industry in particular as well, made comment on it. So it's definitely something out there in the public arena, but yeah, not a great one for us, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. I mean, the Law Society have sort of said that they've produced this sort of now 32-page property information form with 22 pages of guidance to sort of try and fit in around the material information narrative. And I note that the president of the Law Society, actually, Stu, sort of put out a fairly big commentary in the Gazette in the last week or so. Interestingly, I might add, referring to consumers, not clients, and referring to research that had been done by a estate agent today. And you have to think, well, actually, you know, you're supposed to be representing the interests of solicitors here. You know, where's the consultation with the conveyancing profession? And frankly, I think the consensus is really there hasn't been. And I think what's very strange about the new PIF and the Law Society's attitude to it is they've introduced it. They have said that CQS firms must be using it from the 25th of June, but they're still inviting comment, which and what, you know, they've got an email address if anybody does feel strongly about it. But it seems that they on the one hand they're saying, well, here it is, and then on the other, but, you know, give us your comments. So there's a hint that they might change it, but I'm not convinced. But what concerns me, Stu, you know, is just some of the incredibly wide-ranging questions on there. They ask about, for example, you know, is the seller aware of Japanese knotweed on adjacent property? They're really pushing the concept of caveat emptor into the wild blue yonder, really. Let the buyer beware. They're asking the seller about the construction of the property. They're asking about building safety on every property, not just a flat within the Building Safety Act. They're asking about, you know, flood risk, coastal erosion, coal mining, all of these questions that are very much, you know, expected to be within the sphere of sort of influence of the buyer's conveyancer. And I actually had, interestingly, a student yesterday, hot off the press, Stu, whose firm is already dealing with a misrepresentation claim. Yes, already dealing with a misrep claim around the material information disclosures. So there we go. Not directly from the PIF, but the PIF mirrors, according to the Law Society, material information. So there we go.
It's incredible, though, isn't it, that the Law Society deemed at this point in time they would bring this in. With everything that's been going on, you know, was this something that was really needed? Again, no. And I wonder whether any clients were ever consulted. You assume absolutely not, because I'm not so sure that clients would fully understand some of the information on the forms, how to answer them, or even how to interpret the answers.
They won't. I mean, the form refers to words like tenure,
Yeah.
it asks for the UPRN number or whatever it is. I mean,
So what is the ethos of having those forms? Number one, they've not maybe consulted clients, and number two, lawyers, the two people that basically will be handling the forms and dealing with them in terms of divulging information. I really just don't get the thinking behind it. And like we said before, it's annoying, isn't it, how so many things are encroaching into our job role. Conveyancing simply used to be looking at the title and transferring the title from a seller to a buyer. We're giving tax advice, or with the stamp duty, we're now doing this, that, the other, and now all of a sudden the surveyor's remit's getting a bit blurry in terms of we're venturing into that.
What I find extraordinary is that I'm not prepared to be called an old reactionary, because I'm perhaps seeming to push against the concept of upfront information. I'm not against that per se, but what appears to be happening here is there is just a massive decoupling of the information that's out there, but that the advice that conveyancing lawyers need to be giving to go with that information. And there seems to be this concept that, sellers and buyers will be willing to instruct the likes of you and your firm, Stu, much earlier at the point of marketing or at the point of putting in an offer to get this advice. And if that was the premise and that was what was going to happen, then this might all be justifiable. But the reality is, and I know, sellers and buyers are not going to instruct the likes of you early on. I mean, you've got years of experience of this. We talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe your upfront packs, Stu. Again.
Yeah, we spoke about this yonks ago. And you're right. And also an estate agent, I don't think would want a client to instruct a lawyer at that point because of the time delay that it's going to cause. You've got to shop around, get quotes, instruct somebody. I really don't know where this is going. I just can't see how this is going to speed up the process. But I think upfront information as a generalisation does. Like you say, I'm not against it in any way, shape or form, but there's a means and a way, isn't there? And this is a bit of a...
And in my professional opinion, this isn't it. I certainly think all firms, if they feel that this is a fait accompli, need to be really upping their advice to their seller clients about the risks of completing the form. But also, it sort of slightly concerns me, Stu, whether the sort of CLC firms will just sort of come along for the ride. But my view is it could sort of create a two-tier market because it's only the CQS firms that have got to use this. And albeit, there's far fewer CLC regulated firms, because they're large firms, they control a fairly significant...
I don't think anybody would, if you had the direct choice of what form you're going to use, I don't think any firm's going to pick this one. Whether there are outside influences on that, such as the case management systems and whatnot, I don't know whether that's going to have much of an impact or not. But we'll see. We'll see, won't we? Because until the form starts to get into sort of popular circulation, whether firms will then adopt it or not, I don't know. I think from a practical point as well, if there's going to be kickback, if you're not using the form from other firms, there could be a commercial decision to be made there as well. But who knows? We'll have to see when it comes out in the wash.
Yeah, I think we'll come back to this discussion. So, Stu, moving on then, planning and building regs, some big changes.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's the enforcement period that's changed, isn't it? Which is now 10 years. And I think this is a subject we're going to cover in one of our sort of next subscription chats, isn't it? Because it's a popular one. People have different opinions as well within the industry as to what's acceptable and what's not regarding planning and building regs. And I think, again, it is a subject that is quite complicated when you get down to the nitty-gritty of it. So it will be a chat that we're going to sort of try and do a deep dive in, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll certainly do one of our CPD webinars for our subscribers on this. But yes, I mean, the planning enforcement period from the 25th of April, actually, has gone up from 4 years to 10 years. And building regs went up from, 1 year to 10 years last October, if memory serves. So I think that's going to have a very significant... I'll be interested to see. And actually, we perhaps ought to get... I think we've got a colleague from... Stuart Title coming on fairly soon, haven't we?
That's right, we have, yes.
That would be a very good opportunity to have a chat about this and what impact that may have on the indemnity insurance policies in this area. So I certainly think that's something we need to have a chat about.
Absolutely.
But simply sort of punting out a policy when you've got, if you've got a porch that was put up and it, it had been put up more than a year ago, we tended to get a 50 quid policy and move on. Well, if building control can now come back for 10 years and take enforcement proceedings, I think that's a very different landscape altogether.
Yeah.
And speaking of landscapes, I mean, I don't want to talk too much about this really, Stu, but we've obviously done CPD webinars on this, on the good old Building Safety Act. And the Law Society finally got round to putting out some guidance on it. And rather romantically, they did it on the anniversary, the 2-year anniversary of the qualifying leaseholder date. They put this out on the 14th of Feb 2024. So a nice touch with the date there. And I just really want to flag it and point both, SRA and CLC regulated firms to it. It's not behind the Law Society's sort of sign-in, sort of, it's not a paywall, but you know what I mean. So anybody can view it. And I think if any firm, CLC or SRA regulated, is doing work that falls potentially within the scope of the Building Safety Act, they should absolutely look at this.
Yeah.
I was unimpressed, I have to say, that it took the Law Society so long to put anything out. But to absolutely give them their due, to be completely fair, this is very, very useful. It is full of practical guidance and commentary and things that firms should and shouldn't be doing. And I absolutely think that all firms that are doing the work, actually, or indeed that aren't, should have a look at it.
Should have a look.
Quite frankly, it's a biggish piece of work by them. And as I say, there are quite a lot of areas of Law Society thinking that I'm, don't agree with or I'm not impressed with. But it's completely fair to say, and in their own words, therefore I'm quoting them, but this guide provides background on how the Building Safety Act operates and provides high-level advice on acting in BSA 22 related cases. So it doesn't involve sort of landlords, developers, cladding manufacturers and contractors, but it's got an introduction, who pays. Crucially, it's got general criteria for working on Building Safety Act matters, advising sellers, advising buyers and lenders. Just, I think, a very, very useful piece of work that they've put out. And certainly SRA regulated firms and CQS firms, Stu, should really be making sure that their advice and their standard letters align with the guidance that the Law Society has. I don't know whether you've had the chance to have a look at it yet.
I've actually not had a chance personally to look at it, but I know people in the office have read it, and actually it was all positive in terms of the content. Yeah. So again, something that's free and available, everybody should have a look at it, shouldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. So then, Stu, just moving on to some sort of smaller matters in a way, but and the Land Registry updates its practice guides very regularly. And we, of course, only mentioned those that, I think a particular sort of perhaps sort of regular significance to conveyancers. But just people might want to note that they have updated Practice Guide 67, which is an important one. It's evidence of identity. And they have, and this is obviously very relevant to your lovely selves, CLC regulated licensed probate practitioners can now verify identity on forms ID1 and ID2. So the Land Reg has agreed with the CLC that probate practitioners can verify identity, even though they may not be conveyancers or solicitors. So I just think that's helpful for firms. It's just helpful for organisations receiving ID1s and ID2s, on which, of course, their Land Registry applications will depend to some degree, simply to know that licensed probate practitioners can now, or CLC regulated licensed probate practitioners can verify identity. So, just worth noting, I thought.
Absolutely. So moving on, some other news from Companies House. They've announced that they have some fee changes, and in particular relevance to us as of today, the 1st of May. It's the registration of a charge, paper application, £24, and a digital application, £15. So it's definitely worth noting these fees down so you don't make any mistakes when accounting to your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the key thing here, I mean, and there's a whole raft of fee changes. I mean, we've obviously just picked out the ones of particular relevance to conveyancers, but I think it's certainly worth highlighting and reminding our conveyancing colleagues that, because this is something that firms get wrong or people just don't know, is that, and it's certainly, I've worked in firms where other people have made this mistake, and it's pretty unfortunate when they do, that if your client is a limited company and they buy a property and get a charge, it's necessary to register the legal charge with Companies House within 21 days of completion. That's straight days. And you have to get your certificate of registration to submit to the land registry. But the key point, Stu, is that I think people don't quite realise is that there's just no wriggle room. If you miss that deadline, that registration of that charge with Companies House, you can't then do it without a court order.
No, Companies House are not somebody you can negotiate with. So yeah, if you make, and also if you make any kind of mistake on the application form, anything, and it gets thrown back at you, you've still got that 21-day period. There's no extension to that. So yeah, you do have to be mega careful.
Yeah, and that's sort of why it was worth noting the fees point, really, because again, you don't want to be submitting the wrong fee, because that could cause your registration to be, well, thrown out if you miss the deadline.
Yeah.
So, Stu, I just wanted to mention, not least because we've had lovely Noel Hunter on the show a couple of times, the chairman of the Consumer Code for Home Builders, which really is going from strength to strength, and practitioners that deal with new builds should be aware of the Consumer Code for Home Builders. It's designed to help consumers and clients know what level of service to expect from a developer at the point of sort of reserving a new build. But I think what a lot of people and a lot of clients and a lot of conveyancers don't realise is that actually they've got a free dispute resolution scheme. So if after a new build has been purchased, your client comes back to you and says, well, the developer's not doing this and not doing that, well, actually you can point them to the Consumer Code for Home Builders dispute resolution scheme, which has been properly set up. And most of the main home warranty providers actually require developers to adhere to the code. So what I just think is interesting and very sort of, quite innovative about Noel is that the New Homes Quality Board was set up, which when he last spoke to us it was thought that might be the sort of anointed new homes regulator set out, under the Building Safety Act, but actually that's not proved to be the case. So the government hasn't yet effectively sort of put out to tender, I suppose, which organisation will be the new homes regulator. So I think quite cannily, Noel and his colleagues at the Consumer Code for Home Builders, Stu, have just sort of updated the code, and they've moved forward, and it's been revised and updated from the 1st of Jan. And I think what is interesting is there's now a new 14-day cooling off period from the date of reservation. So I want to invite Noel back to come and chat to us, because I'm really interested to know how that fits in with the 28-day exchange deadline. So I think that's quite interesting. There's a pre-inspection requirement to help home buyers seek professional help to identify snags, more detailed requirements and guidance regarding complaints, an increase in the amount that home buyers can claim through the dispute resolution scheme. So I think they've made some really significant changes to the code. I think conveyancers need to be aware of it, but I'm also putting out a call for Noel, because I just think he's delightful, and there'll be, I think, quite a lot for us to chat about with him. So moving on, Stu.
Yeah, so I suppose one of the real biggies that's come up in the last few months would actually be back from the budget, which actually seems ages ago now. 6th of March it was, when it was announced that multiple dwellings relief would be abolished from the 1st of June 2024. Yeah. So we've got to be particularly careful when advising clients in general, I think, regarding anything to do with stamp duty. But now, for 2 or more dwellings, from the 1st of June 2024, it will be abolished. I think if you've exchanged contracts, excuse me, sorry.
Right, both spluttering away here, Stu.
But yeah, if you've exchanged contracts on or before the 6th of March, you're okay. But generally, it's going to be abolished from the 1st of June 2024.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, typically, general election in the air at some point. And of course, stamp duty land tax is always the big one, isn't it? There's always a sort of, whiff of excitement. Ooh, is stamp duty land tax going to be sort of reduced or altered or tinkered with? Perhaps there's a sort of bit of a sort of political carrot in the run up to an election. I think if that's the case, I suspect that most conveyancers might just, take a long holiday or go and do a different job, because of course we know that the stamp duty land tax no holiday a couple of years ago was grim.
Yeah, I hate to think what might happen. To conveyances in this next election run-in. I really think that obviously Labour want to make their mark by announcing various changes, and I think so maybe the lack of information regarding stamp duty from the last 2 budgets, I think that's going to come to fruition in this next sort of pledge by the Conservatives. So I think it's going to be something that no doubt will come up and will no doubt then be something that's going to affect the profession in the future.
Yeah, well, and I also think, both political parties are sort of knocking around sound bites, particularly regarding leasehold, for example.
Yeah.
And it's something we talk about, and we'll no doubt do a CPD on it. But the bottom line is, leasehold as a form of tenure, has got sort of thousands, hundreds of years of sort of history behind it. And there are ways of mitigating the worst excesses and problems with that form of tenure without necessarily throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And I think the problem is we're getting these highline sort of sound bites from people who, with the greatest respect to them, they're good at other things, but they don't understand what they're talking about. And I think this is creating potentially quite a lot of uncertainty in the market, particularly, of course, in relation to the private rental sector, Section 21 notices and so on and so forth. So I'm afraid that conveyancers are going to be at the sort of brunt of lots of political sound bites in the coming sort of 6 to 12 months, too, actually.
Absolutely, unfortunately so.
But probably the last thing to mention in this sort of little spring update is actually people might want to just go and find, if they haven't found it already, again, actually sort of particularly relevant to new builds, of course, is the Land Registry have put out a blog on the difference in how they treat, particularly in relation to new builds, discounts and incentives. Because they sort of remind us that the Council of Mortgage Lenders requires conveyancers to tell lenders when a discount or incentive is given as part of a property's purchase price to help lenders decide whether or not to, make the advance. But the problem is that the Land Registry identify is that incentive can mean, different things to different people, and an incentive might provide a form of discount on the property, but the Land Reg might not react to that. But a discount is a deduction from the purchase price, which they will react to. So, they consider a discount to be a cash sum deducted from the purchase price. And their practice is to deduct the discount from the purchase price, that then represents a true reflection of the price paid for the property, and they will enter the net lower sum on the register. So I think that's an important little point, actually, for conveyancers to go and have a look at. They give some really useful examples in the blog. I'm certainly not going to go through them all, but it's really, really interesting, very useful, and I think conveyancers need to understand what the Land Registry's approach and what they consider an incentive to be rather than a discount. Conveyancers can then all take a consistent approach in terms of advising their buyers, advising their lenders, and also explaining to their clients what to expect on the register when 2 years later the registry finally complete their registration of their new build.
If you're lucky, but yeah.
But there we go. All right, Stu. Well, that was, I think, a good trot through some of the key things that have come up in the last 2 or 3 months. So it's really nice to see you again. As ever, if anybody's got any comments or views, do get in touch. And of course, if you want to subscribe to get the other content of the monthly CPD webinars and lots of other stuff, then do go to www.conveyancing-matters.co.uk. But for now, Stu, that's it, and I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Take care, guys.
Bye.